You know, one of the biggest mistakes people make is rushing through life without ever stopping to ask the fundamental question, who am I? They wake up, go through their routines, chase goals that society has handed them, and collapse into bed at night without ever examining whether they're even on the right path. And that's dangerous, because when you fail to reflect, you risk living a life that isn't yours. See, self-reflection isn't just some passive exercise. It's not sitting cross-legged in a room full of candles waiting for enlightenment to strike. No, it's about taking a hard, honest look at yourself, your habits, your choices, your patterns, and asking, is this leading me somewhere meaningful? Because if you don't ask that question, you might spend years climbing a ladder that's leaning against the wrong wall. Now, reflection takes courage. It means admitting where you've been making excuses, where you've been lazy, where you've allowed fear to dictate your actions. It's not comfortable. But discomfort is the birthplace of growth. If you don't challenge yourself, if you don't confront your weaknesses, then you're just coasting. And coasting, that's just another word for stagnation. Most people are afraid to look inward because they might not like what they find. And so they distract themselves with social media, with entertainment, with mindless routines that keep them busy but unfulfilled. But if you never stop to assess, to evaluate, to redirect your energy where it truly belongs, then you become a slave to whatever's loudest in your environment. And if you let that happen, life will pull you in every direction except the one that leads to your potential. So what does self-reflection actually look like? It means asking yourself tough questions. Not surface level, not the easy stuff, but the real, deep, sometimes uncomfortable questions. What am I avoiding? What habits are holding me back? Where am I wasting my energy? If I keep going down this path, where will I end up in 5 years? And once you have those answers, you act on them. That's the part people miss. They sit around thinking about change, but nothing happens until you actually take responsibility and do something with what you've learned about yourself. Maybe that means cutting out distractions. Maybe that means dropping a toxic friendship that's been weighing you down. Maybe that means waking up earlier, reading more, eating better, moving your body, or simply deciding that today, not tomorrow, not next week, but today, you're going to start showing up differently. Because let's be honest, if you don't take ownership of your time, your mind, your energy, someone else will. And that someone doesn't have your best interests at heart. You have to reclaim control over what matters most. Your focus, your decisions, your direction. You can't keep waiting for motivation to strike. Motivation is fleeting. Discipline, on the other hand, is built through small, intentional choices. And those choices start with self-awareness, knowing exactly where you stand and where you need to go next. At the end of the day, if you don't take the time to reflect, you'll never truly know yourself. And if you don't know yourself, how can you expect to become anything more than what you already are? Growth starts with understanding. Understanding starts with reflection. And reflection, real reflection, is the first step toward transformation. People spend so much of their lives chasing approval, bending themselves into shapes that please others, constantly scanning the room for validation, like a starving man looking for scraps. And the real tragedy, most don't even realize they're doing it. They think it's just part of life, part of being social, part of success. But here's the truth. If you live for the approval of others, you will die by their rejection. Look around. How many people do you see making choices based not on what they truly want, but on what will make them look good, what will get them more likes, more applause, more artificial respect from people who deep down don't even care? It's a dangerous game to play because the moment your self-worth is tied to external validation, you become a puppet. Your confidence rises and falls with the opinions of others, and before you know it, you're living a life that isn't even yours. But let's be real. Validation feels good. When someone praises you, acknowledges you, makes you feel seen, there's a rush, a sense of worth. That's human nature. The problem is when you depend on it. Because what happens when it disappears? What happens when people stop clapping, when the compliments dry up, when the crowd moves on to the next thing? If your identity is built on external validation, you're left with nothing but an empty shell. And that's terrifying. So why do we do it? Why do we care so much about what other people think? At its core, it's fear. Fear of rejection, fear of being alone, fear of not measuring up. But here's what people don't tell you. Chasing approval is a trap. The more you seek it, the more you give away your power. You let strangers dictate your mood, your choices, your sense of worth. And the worst part, most of them aren't even thinking about you. They're too busy worrying about themselves, wrapped up in their own insecurities, their own battles. If you want to live a life that's truly yours, you have to break free from this cycle. That means developing an unshakable sense of self, a foundation so strong that no amount of criticism, no amount of indifference, no amount of rejection can shake you. And that's not easy. It requires stripping away the need to be liked, the need to be validated, the need to fit in. But the moment you stop needing approval, you become unstoppable. It starts with asking yourself one simple but powerful question. If no one were watching, if no one would ever know, what would I do? What choices would you make? How would you live? Because that's where your real path begins. The things you'd pursue, not for recognition, not for applause, but simply because they matter to you, that's what's worth fighting for. But let's not pretend this is easy. Walking away from the need for validation means facing resistance, both from within yourself and from others. People might not like the new you. They might call you selfish, arrogant, indifferent. Why? Because the moment you stop seeking approval, you become unpredictable. You stop being someone they can control, and that threatens people. But that's their problem, not yours. And what's the alternative? To spend your entire life molding yourself into something that fits other people's expectations, to silence your own voice just to keep the peace? That's not living. That's performing. And no performance lasts forever. Eventually the mask slips, and when it does, you're left wondering why you wasted so much time pretending to be something you're not. So let go. Stop handing over your power. Recognize that the only validation that truly matters is the one that comes from within. Because when you reach that point, when you stand firm in who you are, when you no longer seek permission to exist, when you stop explaining yourself, apologizing for your decisions, waiting for approval, then and only then are you truly free. Most people don't realize just how much control they have over their lives. They think their energy is something that gets pulled in every direction: work, family, obligations, distractions, and they just have to go along with it. But that's not true. Your energy doesn't just drift. It follows your attention. Whatever you focus on grows. Whatever you give your time, your mind, your emotions to, that's what shapes your reality. So the real question is, what are you feeding? Because everything you put your attention on is either building you up or tearing you down. Think about it. If you're constantly focused on problems, on negativity, on what's missing, then what do you think your life becomes? A series of problems, negativity, and a deep sense of lack. Your mind is like a garden. If you keep watering weeds, they'll take over everything. And yet, people do this every day. They focus on resentment, on past failures, on petty drama. They waste energy worrying about things outside of their control, things that have no real impact on their long-term success or happiness. Then they wonder why they feel drained, stuck, lost. But when you shift your focus, everything changes. When you put your attention on growth, on progress, on solutions instead of problems, you start to move forward. It's not magic, it's simply how the mind works. What you focus on expands. If you're always looking for excuses, you'll find them. If you're always looking for opportunities, you'll find those too. And the difference between the two is what separates people who build something meaningful from people who stay trapped in the same cycles year after year. You have to be intentional with your attention. You have to guard it like it's your most valuable asset, because it is. If you let yourself get sucked into every distraction, every meaningless debate, every superficial craving for entertainment, then you're scattering your energy in 100 different directions. And when your energy is scattered, you become weak. You lose momentum. You lose clarity. You feel overwhelmed, frustrated, exhausted, not because life is unfair, but because you're pouring your energy into things that don't matter. Look at the most disciplined, most successful people in any field. They all have one thing in common: focus. They don't waste time on nonsense. They're not scrolling mindlessly for hours, caught up in every trivial argument, reacting to every little thing that doesn't go their way. They know where their attention belongs, and they guard it ruthlessly. They put it into their craft, their vision, their purpose. And that's why they succeed, not because they have more time, but because they use their time better. Now, this isn't about ignoring problems or pretending that challenges don't exist. It's about making a choice. Are you going to dwell on what's wrong, or are you going to focus on what you can do about it? Because there's always something you can do. Even in the worst situations, even when life feels completely out of your control, you still have power over one thing, where you put your energy. And that choice determines everything. So take a step back and ask yourself, where has my focus been? What am I giving my energy to? If the answer is things that drain you, things that distract you, things that make you feel small, then it's time to shift. Start putting your attention on what actually moves you forward. Invest your energy into habits that make you stronger, into relationships that inspire you, into goals that challenge you. Because the second you decide to do that, life starts working with you instead of against you. And the best part, you're the one in control. You always have been. There's something deeply unsettling about stagnation, about waking up every day feeling like you're just going through the motions, like nothing is moving forward, like you're stuck in some endless loop of repetition. And yet, so many people accept this as normal. They live the same year over and over again, calling it a life, never pushing themselves, never challenging themselves, never demanding more. And then they wonder why they feel unfulfilled, they wonder why they feel lost. But here's the truth, if you're not growing, you're dying. There is no standing still in life. You're either moving forward or you're slowly decaying, mentally, physically, emotionally. And the only way to ensure you're moving forward is to invest in yourself, to make the decision every single day that you are going to get better. Not for anyone else, not for validation, not because someone told you to, but because you owe it to yourself. Now, personal growth isn't something that just happens to you. It's not automatic. You don't wake up one day and suddenly become stronger, wiser, more capable. It takes work, it takes effort, it takes a conscious choice to step outside of your comfort zone and put yourself in situations that force you to evolve. And that's uncomfortable. Growth is uncomfortable by design. It has to be, because if it were easy, everyone would be doing it. The first step, self-education. The people who rise above, the people who build something meaningful with their lives, they are constantly learning. They read, they study, they seek out wisdom. And not in some passive, I'll get to it when I have time way, but in a deliberate, disciplined manner. They understand that knowledge is power, but only if it's applied. And they don't just consume information for the sake of it. They use it. They take what they've learned and implement it, refining themselves along the way. And then there's physical growth. You cannot separate the mind from the body. If you neglect your health, if you let yourself become weak, tired, sluggish, you are actively limiting your potential. You don't need to become a world-class athlete, but you do need to take care of yourself. Move your body, strengthen it, fuel it properly, because the stronger you become physically, the more resilient you become mentally. And in a world that constantly throws obstacles in your path, resilience is everything. Then there's discipline. No one likes to talk about discipline because it isn't glamorous. It's not flashy, but it is the foundation of every single success story. Without discipline, nothing else matters. You can have talent, intelligence, all the potential in the world, but if you lack the discipline to show up consistently, to put in the work, to do what needs to be done even when you don't feel like it, none of it means anything. And this is where most people fail. They think motivation is enough. They wait for inspiration to strike, for the perfect moment, for the right circumstances. But motivation is fleeting, it's unreliable. And if you depend on it, you'll never get anywhere. The ones who truly grow, the ones who rise above, they don't wait for the right conditions. They create them. They do the hard things when no one is watching. They push themselves, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's painful, even when they could easily make an excuse. Because they know that growth doesn't care about your excuses. It doesn't care how tired you are, how unfair life is, how much resistance you're facing. It only rewards those who are willing to show up day after day and put in the work. And let's be clear, this is a lifelong process. There is no finish line when it comes to personal growth. You don't reach a point where you can say, that's it, I'm done, I've learned enough, I've grown enough. No, there is always another level, always another challenge, always another way to refine yourself. And that should excite you, because the second you stop growing, the second you decide you've had enough, that's the moment you start to decline. So don't settle. Don't accept mediocrity. Demand more from yourself. Challenge yourself. Build yourself. Because at the end of the day, no one is coming to save you. No one is going to hand you growth, hand you success, hand you a better life. It's on you. It always has been. People think that being a good person means saying yes to everything, being endlessly available, always putting others first. They think that setting boundaries is selfish, that it pushes people away, that it makes them seem unkind. But that couldn't be further from the truth. The reality is, if you don't set boundaries, if you don't decide where your limits are, the world will decide for you. And when that happens, you'll find yourself exhausted, resentful, stretched, so thin that there's nothing left for yourself. Think about it. How often do people give away their time, their energy, their attention to things that drain them? They say yes to obligations they don't want, they tolerate disrespect, they overextend themselves, all because they're afraid of disappointing others. But what they don't realize is that every time they say yes to something they don't truly want, they are saying no to themselves, no to their peace, no to their goals, no to the life they actually want to build. A person without boundaries is a person who has handed over control. They are at the mercy of whatever pressures, demands, or manipulations come their way. And that's no way to live. Because the more you allow people to overstep, the more they will. It's not even about malice most of the time, it's simply human nature. If you allow yourself to be walked on, don't be surprised when people keep walking. But setting boundaries isn't just about saying no, it's about knowing your worth. Understanding that your time, your energy, your mental and emotional well-being are valuable, and anything valuable must be protected. If you don't respect your own limits, how can you expect anyone else to? If you let yourself be treated as an afterthought, as a backup plan, as someone who is always available no matter what, then people will continue to treat you that way. Not because they're cruel, but because you have trained them to. And here's the hard part. When you start setting boundaries, when you start saying no, when you start demanding respect, not everyone will like it. Some people will push back. Some will guilt trip you, call you selfish, make you feel like you're in the wrong for protecting your space. That's because they benefited from your lack of boundaries. They liked the version of you that was always available, always agreeable, always putting yourself last. But their discomfort is not your problem. Because the people who truly respect you, who truly care for you, will understand. They will adjust. They will recognize that a strong person, someone with self-respect, with direction, with purpose, cannot be everything to everyone. And make no mistake, boundaries are not just about people. They are about everything you allow into your life. What kind of conversations do you tolerate? What kind of distractions do you allow to pull you away from your work, your purpose? What kind of habits do you permit to eat away at your potential? Because if you don't draw the line somewhere, if you don't take a stand and decide what you will and won't accept, then you will become a passive participant in your own life. You have to understand that your time is finite, your energy is limited. Every moment you spend on something that doesn't serve you is a moment you can never get back. So why waste it? Why let yourself be consumed by obligations you didn't choose, relationships that drain you, commitments that don't align with your vision? If something isn't adding value to your life, it's taking value away, and if it's taking value away, then you need to have the strength to cut it off. But don't expect this to be easy. Setting boundaries takes courage, it takes strength to stand up and say, this is what I will allow, this is what I won't. It takes self-respect to walk away from things that don't serve you, to stop justifying toxicity, to stop making excuses for why you keep letting yourself be drained. And it takes discipline to maintain those boundaries, to not fold the moment someone pushes against them. But the reward, it's freedom, it's peace, it's the ability to live a life that is truly yours, not one dictated by the expectations and demands of others. And at the end of the day, that's what matters, because you weren't put on this earth to be a doormat, to be a people pleaser, to be a version of yourself that keeps everyone else comfortable while you suffer in silence. You were meant to stand tall, to take control, to choose who and what gets access to you. And once you do that, once you reclaim your time, your energy, your worth, You'll never go back. There is a version of you that is stronger, sharper, more disciplined, a version that rises above distractions, that doesn't settle for mediocrity, that doesn't waste time making excuses. And the only thing standing between you and that version is the work you are willing to put in. Most people never become who they could be because they refuse to take responsibility for their own growth. They wait. They wait for motivation, for the right time, for someone to push them forward. But no one is coming. No one is going to hand you discipline, hand you confidence, hand you success. That has to be built day by day through choices, through struggle, through the relentless pursuit of something greater. You don't accidentally become the best version of yourself. You don't wake up one day and suddenly have clarity, strength, and purpose. It takes effort. It takes making the hard choices, the ones that are uncomfortable in the moment but necessary in the long run. It takes showing up for yourself when no one else is watching. And this isn't just about external success. It's about how you carry yourself, how you think, how you move through the world. It's about setting a standard for yourself, one that demands excellence, that refuses to tolerate laziness, excuses, or half-hearted effort. Because if you don't hold yourself to a high standard, no one else will. But here's the thing. Becoming the best version of yourself isn't a destination. There is no finish line where you get to stop growing, stop improving, stop striving. There is always another level, and that should excite you, not discourage you, because that means there is always room to become stronger, wiser, more capable. And the more you push yourself, the more you realize that the limit is far beyond what you once believed. So start now, not tomorrow, not when you feel like it, now. Decide that you will demand more from yourself, that you will break free from the version of you that settles, that makes excuses, that stays comfortable. Decide that you will become someone you respect, someone who earns their own admiration through action, through resilience, through the relentless pursuit of their highest potential. Because at the end of the day, that is what truly matters. That is what defines you. At the core of it all, your life is shaped by where you direct your focus, where you invest your energy, and the standards you set for yourself. If you want to change your reality, you have to start with yourself. That means stepping back and reflecting on who you are and where you're going. It means letting go of the need for external validation and reclaiming control over your own mind. It means recognizing that whatever you give your attention to will grow, so you must be deliberate about what you allow into your life. It also means committing to personal growth, not just when it's convenient, but as a lifelong pursuit. It's about investing in yourself, strengthening your mind, your body, and your discipline so that you're equipped to handle whatever life throws at you. It's about setting boundaries, protecting your energy, and refusing to let the world dictate how you should live. And above all, it's about striving every single day to become the best version of yourself. Not for anyone else, not for approval, but because you owe it to yourself. No one else can do this for you. No one else can walk this path. The choice is yours, and it always has been. So take control. Shift your energy. Build yourself into someone you respect, because at the end of the day, the life you create is a direct reflection of the person you choose to become.